Bud vases may be a low-end item in your store, but there still is something creative that you can do with them and make them really fun. If you're still doing a bud vase with 3 roses, baby's breath, and a bow, you need to stop. Let's be a little bit more creative with that and have some fun with it. One of the things that I wanted to show you, actually I have several, but one of them is just a lotus pod. And just by taking a lotus pod and a serrated blade, I'm just going to slice this in half. And it's becoming fall, so you have lotus pods that will be in your fall pod selection, and dried flowers are actually really, really popular. But once I did that, you can see that it has that natural grid. So all I'm going to do is just place that on the very top, and then we can add our flowers into this. So it just becomes a spacer for us, so we're able to add many different products. If you want to, you can attach that to the vase by just a little bit of U-glue, and it'll stay put. By the time I get my flowers in there, it's going to be balanced enough that it's going to be a nice way just to have all of that detail. And just by adding different textures and different elements, adding dried materials, so I've got some birch, and we can just add to this. And again, just repeating the textures. Let's get a little bit of a stronger focal. I'm going to use a carnation down below. And again, by using just some different textures and some different materials, you can have some fun with this. And this is a great way to use up if you have just like a single flower to use up and just to add some different materials to it, or you can repeat with many different products. But again, just something really simple just by using the lotus pod as your grid. And then what it does is it minimizes the amount of flowers that you really have to put in here, because you don't have to add a lot. And you can see that that's simple enough to add to that vase. Another idea that you can do, which I think is just really fun, is just by using a bird's nest. And you know, let's go with a taller vase. So a bird's nest, and just by putting some holes into the very bottom of it, you know, the more expensive the bud vase, the harder it is to put a hole into the bottom of it. So just by putting some holes into that, we can add some really fun, let's use some delphinium here and some hydrangea. So I'm just going to take off a little bit of this foliage. And again, just by placing my hydrangea just down into this nest, it adds just a nice little detail. So I wouldn't even have to add a whole lot more to this. I have a little bit of delphinium that I want to add, just to give it some height. But it's about creating the details. It's about adding dimension. It's about making it different than everybody else. It's not having the same kind of thing that everybody else is doing. So think about how you can create your own bud vases and do them a little bit different than everybody else. It's that creativity. It's that imagination that we have. It's the fun that we have with the business that we're in that creates some amazing things. So that's what's cool. Find a hole there. But you kind of get the gist of where we're going with that. You can add some more flowers to that. Another one that you can do, which I think is just really kind of fun, is using a sunflower itself. So by taking a sunflower, and let me get my rose ready here because I want to add a rose. You have to use some products that have a little bit of durability to them for this particular trick. So by using the sunflower, you can make a couple of insertions. So if you take your knife, and you can see down in the center of the sunflower, you take your knife and just poke it down through until you feel the blade coming through the end. Stick your fingernail into that, and then you can insert about 3 stems into the sunflower without cracking it, and just be really gentle with that. So let's add some eucalyptus. And maybe make one more. So the smaller the hole that you make, the better off it is. And it's going to hold up really nicely for you. Get some texture here, some different foliages. But then it's just really kind of fun to be able to use some of the materials that we already have. You can see that has now become the grid, and that goes right down into our bud vase also. And just by adding some detail and adding some fun, we can be really creative with our bud vases. Another one that I like to do is using butterflies. And I like just taking a vase, a little bit of U-glue. In here I just have just a strip of U-glue. Get it off the paper here. And I'm just going to add it to my vase and just kind of wrap it around. Because I want to glue to it, and I can't glue just directly to the glass. I have to glue to something porous. U-glue is great with that. Gluing something porous, of course, is one of our rules of glue. And then just using some of the Oasis adhesive and a butterfly. And putting some glue on our butterflies. Counting to 10, and then sticking those on in various places. What that does is it doesn't actually create a huge grid, but it allows to take up space, and that's what's really fun. And this is great for summertime. And adding some butterflies to it. Here I have one that's completed. And it's just really interesting just to be able to add some detail. And it's those little details that make you stand out as far as against your competition, against other designers. And it just kind of gives you a rapport for your flower shop of being a little creative. And that's what's kind of fun. So adding a few, about a little bit more blue plum here. Piece of cake, just fun. Just some really, you know, some cute little tricks in creating something interesting and different for your store. So think about all the different things that you can do, all the different ideas and things that maybe you have in your store that you could use up to create and have some fun with all of your different bud vases.